If you want ice like this, stick around. In this video, we're going to look at all the Yeti ice products, what they fit best with, how they perform, and we'll use Yeti ice to pack a cooler correctly according to Yeti's own instructions, so you can get ice like this in your cooler on your next adventure. The reviews I've read say that Yeti ice will last 72 hours. So we're also going to go out on a road trip and see if this glorious little pizza pop can stay frozen over a 3-day trip. Most of the time, a camping trip or boating trip is a spur-of-the-moment deal for me, so I don't always have time to preload my cooler the right way, but with Yeti ice, I just toss a couple of these in the bottom of the cooler, pack my things, top it off with bagged ice, and these blocks are so cold that by the time the bagged ice has melted, the Yeti ice refreezes the water around it. So that means these things should help our cooler stay icy all weekend long. Now, Yeti ice is not just frozen water in a fancy mold. It uses something called phase change material science to freeze at -2 degrees Celsius. It holds cold longer than regular ice, and it's packed into this rugged, nice, reusable shell. Because PCMs are colder than regular ice, which freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, this absorbs more heat before it melts, keeping the cooler contents colder longer. It has more surface area, which means faster freezing, a thinner overall profile, especially with the Yeti thin ice, that helps cold reach the center more quickly, and cutouts for airflow, which allows the freezer to do its job a little more efficiently. All of this lets you throw it back in the freezer and have it ready to go much quicker than a block of frozen water. There's several sizes of Yeti ice, so we're going to take a look at what fits what. The large Yeti ice is good for your Tundra Haul, your hopper coolers, basically any of the larger coolers. They're designed to fit snugly at the bottom, and using 2 or more often helps to increase the cooling power. The block and the medium size are great for smaller hopper coolers and for backpack coolers. And the small Yeti ice is great for lunch boxes. Just be mindful that all these do sweat a little bit, so you're going to need to take precautions if you don't want any wetness in your lunch container. Now, out of curiosity, we took all the Yeti ice blocks and we left them out at room temperature to see how long it would take for them to just melt. We also put real ice out, and real ice, as we all know, sucks all on its own. It melts so fast compared to the Yeti ice, it's not even comparable. The small Yeti thin ice took an hour and a half to completely thaw out. The 1-pound ice block took about 2 hours. The thin ice medium took 4 hours. The medium Yeti ice took 16 hours. The large thin ice took 10 hours to thaw out. And the large OG Yeti ice takes 18 hours to thaw out at room temperature. Now, in the other direction, we also tested how long it took to refreeze a Yeti ice block once again, and obviously it varies on the size of the ice block, but here's the results we found. Okay, this is after an hour and a half. It's starting to get there. Maybe starting to freeze up. The thin ice, maybe starting to freeze up a bit. There it is. After an hour and a half, that little guy's good. It's just slushy. Slushy, but not totally frozen. As you can see here, they all froze up in 4 hours or less. And when you look at these comparisons, Yeti ice refreezes pretty quickly. But will it keep those pizza pops frozen for 3 days? To get these things into a real test scenario, I'm going to go on a 3-day road trip, and I'm going to take my Yeti Roadie 24 cooler packed with food, drinks, Yeti ice and cubed ice, and we're going to follow Yeti's official instructions on how to pack a cooler. First, we preload with cubed ice to cool off the inside of the cooler. Next, empty that out and put in a Yeti ice at the bottom. Next, put any frozen food items you want to stay frozen on top of that. Then add a layer of cube ice. On top of that, you can add any cold drinks or food you want to keep nice and cold, and then top it all off with more ice right to the top. It was a long drive to our first stop here, and so I had a little fish along the way, stretch the legs. For most of this trip, the cooler with the pizza pops is going to be either in the car like it is now, or sitting in room temperature. And we'll get back on the road. At our first stop for the night, I added a bunch of food to the top layer and ended up keeping the lid open for quite a while and adding way too much food so that only a bit of ice would fit back on top. So already we're not creating ideal conditions for our little pizza pops at the bottom. Will the legendary cold of Yeti ice and Yeti coolers perform? and keep the pops perfectly frozen? I'm just saying that for the plot, but in reality, who knows? Well, I do, actually. Okay, carrying on. Here's 10 tips to keep ice longer in your Yeti cooler. Number 1, start with a chilled cooler. So preload your cooler a few hours prior to use with a sacrificial bag of ice to cool it down. Number 2, use twice the ice as your contents. This means that 1/3 of your cooler can hold your cold drinks and your food, while the other 2/3 should be filled with ice if you fill the cooler completely. Number 4, smaller cubed ice is going to chill a cooler and its contents more quickly, but block ice melts at a much slower rate. Most pros use a mix of both. Number 5, air is the enemy. Large areas of air inside your cooler will accelerate ice melt. It's best to fill it with extra ice, towels, or even crumpled up newspaper. Number 6, don't drain the water. The water helps to insulate the remaining ice. Number 7, sunlight is a heat source. I mean, it is. So keep your cooler out of direct sunlight if it's possible. Ice can last up to twice as long if you keep your cooler in the shade. Number 8, limit cooler access. Every time you open the cooler, you're exchanging the cold air inside for the warm air outside. Number 9, the Tundra and Roadie hard coolers and Yeti tank ice buckets are all dry ice compatible. Dry ice is going to keep food and drinks cold and frozen way longer than regular ice. And number 10, obviously, you can extend your regular ice just by using Yeti ice. It'll dial it into the perfect temperature just below that of regular ice, letting this do all the cooling work to keep your regular ice from melting. The destination for the next day or so is a lake in BC where we're going to be fishing for rainbow trout. And over the time, I'm going to be in and out of that cooler a few times, making sandwiches, grabbing drinks, doing what you do on a fishing trip. So again, we're creating pretty challenging conditions for our little pizza pops. Okay, it's the end of day 3. Let's see how this thing's doing. Pizza pops are completely surrounded by ice. The large Yeti ice block had definitely had an effect on the cubed ice, turning it into this big ice cube iceberg that the pizza pops were actually frozen right inside of. The block itself was not frozen anymore, but it must have been maintaining enough cold and keeping it for so much longer than the rest of the ice, so the ice nearest it was not melted yet and formed that iceberg. Now, as for the pizza pops, no, they're not frozen. They're soggy and they're going in the garbage, but all that beer was freezing cold, and all the other food I had in the cooler all weekend was still perfectly food safe temperature, and really, that's all that matters. The Yeti ice really did help keep my cooler chilled longer than regular ice alone. The iceberg that forms at the bottom really shows how Yeti ice extends the life of your cubed ice. And that ice slurry in the bottom, again, don't drain it, because that's also insulating and keeping things super chilled inside your cooler. Yeti ice, even if you don't have a Yeti cooler, is still a great thing to have to go in any cooler you've got. They work the same. It doesn't matter if it's in a Yeti cooler or not. And if you want to see some of the best Yeti cooler options to use Yeti ice in on your summer adventures, you can check this video out right here. Okay.